When you remove yourself from someone's life, when you step back and create space, something powerful begins to happen. Most people don't realize it, but absence is one of the strongest forces in human relationship. It's not about playing games. It's about reclaiming your value. You see, when you are constantly available, when you are always there to answer the call, to reply to the message, to show up no matter how you're treated, you unintentionally send a signal. You teach the other person that your presence is guaranteed. And what is guaranteed often becomes taken for granted. That's just human nature. People grow accustomed to the constant, and when there's no challenge, there's no urgency to appreciate it. But the moment you step back, the moment you stop pouring all your energy outward, a shift occurs. Suddenly, the air feels different for them. The routine they had with you is disrupted, and the comfort of knowing you'd always be there is gone. That disruption forces them to notice your absence in a way they never noticed your presence. Absence has a way of sharpening the mind. When you're gone, they start to feel the gap, the missing piece that your presence filled. They may not have realized how much space you occupied in their life until it's empty. It's like a song you didn't notice was playing in the background until it stops. And then suddenly you miss it. They begin to see that the conversations they had with you weren't just words, they were connections. The moments you shared weren't just time, they were experiences. The laughter wasn't just noise, it was joy. But all of that is only truly understood when it's gone. This is why absence creates value, because it gives the other person the space to truly feel the weight of what you brought into their life. When you maintain no contact, you give yourself the dignity of not forcing your presence into someone's awareness. You allow them to come to that realization on their own. And that realization is far more powerful when it's not pushed but discovered. You see, the human mind tends to devalue what it has in abundance. But when something becomes scarce, when it's no longer readily available, its perceived worth increases dramatically. This isn't manipulation, it's psychology. It's the law of supply and demand at work in human relationships. If you're everywhere all the time, they can tune you out. But when you're gone, when the calls don't come, when the messages stop, your absence echoes. It creates a contrast between what they had and what they're experiencing now. And here's something deeper. Absence doesn't just make them miss you, it makes them reflect on themselves. Without you there to engage with, to lean on, to talk to, they start to think about why you're not around. They replay moments, they revisit decisions, they question if they underestimated your worth. And the more they think, the more they start to realize that your presence wasn't just convenient, it was meaningful. You weren't just someone in their life. You were a part of the structure that made it whole. And when that structure changes, they feel it in ways they didn't expect. Creating value through absence also works because it communicates self-respect. When you walk away, when you step back, you are saying without words, I know my worth and I will not give it away to someone who doesn't see it. That kind of quiet strength is rare. And people notice it even if they don't admit it. You're no longer begging for attention, no longer trying to prove yourself. And that changes the energy completely. You become someone they have to work to understand again, someone they have to earn access to. And in that process, you become far more valuable in their eyes. Think about the times in your own life when you didn't appreciate something until it was gone. Friendship, a routine, a place, even a simple object. At first, you didn't think much of it because it was always there. But once it was no longer within reach, it gained a new kind of importance in your mind. That's exactly what happens when you create space between yourself and someone else. It gives them the room to remember you, to replay your value, and to see you from a distance they've never had before. And remember, it's not about bitterness or revenge. It's about alignment. You are not punishing someone by stepping back. You are protecting your energy and preserving your value. That space you create becomes a mirror. And in that mirror, they don't just see the absence of you. They see the absence of what they once had. The comfort, the connection, the support, the uniqueness you brought into their life. It all becomes clearer when it's no longer in front of them every day. And often that clarity is the very reason they start to gravitate back toward you, because value recognized too late still has a pull that's hard to ignore. Silence is one of the most underestimated of communication. Most people think that if they're not speaking, they're not saying anything. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Your silence carries weight. It has a frequency, a tone, an energy that people can feel even without a single word being exchanged. When you choose not to respond, when you decide to hold your ground and no contact, you're sending a message far louder than any text, call, or conversation could ever deliver. That message is this: you respect yourself enough to not force your presence where it's not valued. And whether the other person admits it or not, they feel that shift. Think about it. When someone pulls away, you notice. You might not say anything right away, but you feel it. There's a gap, an absence of energy, a missing connection. Your mind starts asking questions. Why aren't they responding? What are they doing? Who are they with? That's the power of silence. It triggers curiosity. It disrupts patterns, and it forces the other person to confront the reality that they no longer have the same access to you. That alone can create a magnetic pull back toward you. because human beings are wired to seek what's been withdrawn. Energy speaks louder than words because words can be dismissed, ignored, or argued with. But energy, you can't fake it and you can't unfeel it. When you're in no contact and you genuinely shift your focus inward into your own growth, your own goals, your own life, that energy changes. You stop radiating neediness or desperation and you start radiating self-assurance. People can feel the difference. The same person who once took you for granted will start to sense that your energy is no longer centered on them, and that awareness alone can spark a desire to re-enter your life. Another layer to this is that silence leaves space for imagination. When you're not constantly updating someone on your life, their mind fills in the blanks. They start picturing you out there, moving on, thriving, maybe even happier than before. That mental image stirs emotions, curiosity, nostalgia, even jealousy. Suddenly, they realize they're not in control of the narrative anymore. They can't predict your next move because they no longer have a direct line into your thoughts and feelings. That uncertainty makes your presence more valuable and your absence more intense. It's also important to understand that silence demands attention because it breaks the normal rhythm. If you were once the person who always reached out first, always replied instantly, always tried to fix things, then your silence is a complete change in the dynamic. It's not what they're used to. And when something changes suddenly, it makes people stop and take notice. Even if they don't respond right away, they register the shift and it plants a seed in their mind. Over time, that seed grows into a realization your energy was something they depended on more than they thought. Silence also shows that you're not chasing validation. When you refrain from sending that just checking in message or that I miss you text, you're showing that your sense of worth isn't tied to their acknowledgement. This is incredibly powerful because it shifts the balance of emotional power. You're no longer giving them the reassurance that you're still there waiting. Instead, you're creating an environment where they have to come to you if they want to reconnect. That reversal in energy can completely change how they see you. And here's the deeper truth. Energy doesn't lie. If you're silent but your mind is still consumed by them, they will feel that lingering attachment. But if you truly shift your focus onto your own life, they will feel that too. The difference is in your vibration. People can sense when you've emotionally released them, even if they can't explain how. And when they feel that release, that's often when they feel the strongest pull to come back. Because now they sense that they could actually lose you. Your silence also forces them to rely on their own emotional resources. When you were in constant contact, you might have been their source of comfort, validation, or entertainment. But when you go quiet, they have to fill that gap themselves. This makes them appreciate, often for the first time, how much you contributed to their emotional well-being. They start to connect the dots between your presence and their own sense of stability and the realization that they've lost that can be a powerful motivator for them to return. Even in the absence of words, your energy tells a story. It tells them whether you're stuck in the past or moving forward. It tells them whether you're holding on to resentment or choosing peace. It tells them whether you're shrinking yourself to fit into their life or expanding the fullest version of yourself. And here's the thing. When you expand, when your energy grows beyond them, they can feel they're no longer the center of your world. That shift is both unsettling and intriguing. And it's often the very thing that makes them want to step back into your life. Silence paired with strong, self-assured energy is a force that can't be ignored. It's not about punishing or manipulating. It's about communicating through presence and absence. It's about showing through your actions, or in this case, your inaction, that you are a person of value who doesn't need to chase in order to be worthy. And when that energy is felt, it lingers in their mind, drawing them back toward you. Not because of anything you said, but because of everything you didn't say. Mystery is one of the most powerful forces in attraction, and it often goes unnoticed until it's gone. When someone has constant access to you, your thoughts, your feelings, your daily life, they get comfortable. They stop wondering about you because they already know what you're thinking, what you're doing, and how you feel about them. There's no chase, no discovery, no curiosity left to ignite their interest. But when you pull that access away, when you go no contact and stop feeding them the constant stream of information they were used to, something interesting happens. Their mind begins to wander. It starts filling in the blanks, creating stories, imagining scenarios, and that curiosity can grow into a powerful pull that makes them want to come back. When someone doesn't know what's going on in your life, they start to think about you more. They wonder if you're happy without them, if you moved on, if you found new people to connect with. They might even start to question whether they misjudge your importance in their life. This uncertainty is uncomfortable for them, but it's also magnetic. The human brain is wired to seek closure, to solve mysteries, to answer unanswered questions. When they can't get that answer directly from you, the desire to reconnect intensifies. Think about it. When you watch a movie and the plot takes a sudden turn, but you don't know how it ends yet, you're drawn in deeper. You have to know what happens next. The same principle applies to relationships. When you take away predictability, you reintroduce intrigue. You become less of a fixed predictable presence and more of an enigma they want to figure out again. This shift in perception makes your presence feel exciting again, not just familiar. Another powerful aspect of mystery is that it forces them to see you from the outside, not from the constant access they once had. They start to imagine you living your life, smiling without them, accomplishing things they're not a part of. And even if those things aren't happening exactly the way they picture, their imagination often creates a version of you that's even more appealing. That's because when someone is curious, their mind tends to focus on the positive or the intriguing aspects of what they don't know, which fuels attraction even more. Mystery also disrupts control. When they knew everything about you, they felt secure in their position in your life. But when they no longer know where you stand, they lose that sense of control. And that loss creates a sense of urgency. People are more likely to pursue something when they feel it slipping away, especially if they're not sure how to get it back. This is why no contact, paired with a confident and evolving version of yourself, becomes so effective. It puts you back in the position of being pursued instead of doing the pursuing. There's also an emotional pull to mystery because it changes the story they tell themselves about you. Before, they might have thought they understood you completely. But now, with less access, they start to realize there are parts of you they never really knew. This makes you more complex, more layered, more valuable in their eyes. People are naturally drawn to depth, to the idea that there's more to discover. And when they sense that about you, it reignites the spark of wanting to know you all over again. In many cases, mystery also creates a sense of nostalgia. When they can't get direct answers, they go back in their mind to the last time they felt connected to you. They replay moments, conversations, memories, searching for clues, trying to figure out where things changed. And in the process, they relive the emotions attached to those moments. Nostalgia has a powerful way of making people long for what they've lost, especially when they start to think they may never experience it again. Mystery works because it shifts the focus. Instead of you trying to show your worth through words and actions, you allow them to realize it on their own through absence and curiosity. You're no longer handing them all the information they need to feel secure about where they stand with you. You're allowing them to experience the discomfort of not knowing, and that discomfort often drives them to take action. It's also important to note that mystery doesn't mean being fake or playing games. It means simply living your life without broadcasting every detail. It means being selective about who gets access to your time, energy, and inner world. It's about showing through your actions that you are not defined by their presence in your life. You are whole and interesting all on your own. And when they see that, when they realize they're no longer in the loop, they start to view you as someone they want to be close to again, not just someone they used to know. Over time, that curiosity can grow stronger than their pride, stronger than their hesitation, and stronger than whatever reason they had for pulling away in the first place. Because at the core, people are drawn to what feels unknown yet familiar, what feels just out of reach but deeply desired. And when you embody that balance, when you're both the person they remember and the mystery they can't figure out, you become someone they can't stop thinking about. When you step into no contact and truly focus on yourself, something begins to shift inside of you that others can't help but notice. This is not about sitting around waiting for someone to come back. It's about taking that time and pouring it into your own growth. It's about redirecting all the energy you once gave to them and investing it back into you. When you do that, you change. Your mindset changes. Your habits change. The way you carry yourself changes. And change like that is magnetic. People are drawn to those who are evolving because evolution signals strength, resilience, and self-respect. During no contact, you begin to see parts of yourself you may have forgotten. Maybe you rediscover passions you let go of, or you set new goals that have nothing to do with them. You start to realize that your life isn't on pause just because they're not in it. And when you move forward with that energy, it radiates. Others can feel when you're living with purpose, when you're building something meaningful for yourself. It's in the way you speak, the way you show up, the way you walk into a room without looking for validation from anyone else. That quiet confidence is far more attractive than constant pursuit. The transformation that happens during self-growth is more than just physical. It's mental, emotional, and even spiritual. You start to replace overthinking with action. You swap waiting for creating. You let go of needing someone else to define your worth and instead build a life that reflects it. This kind of shift isn't something you can fake. It's authentic. And because it's authentic, it becomes undeniable to the people around you. Even those who thought they knew you completely will start to see you differently. When someone left your life, they may have assumed you'd stay the same, that they could come back at any time and find you exactly where they left you. But growth changes that narrative. The version of you they knew begins to fade, replaced by someone stronger, more independent and more fulfilled. And when they notice that, whether directly or indirectly, it disrupts their expectations. They no longer feel they have the same hold over you. And that realization can create a powerful pull to reestablish a connection. There's also an element of curiosity and self-growth. When you start to accomplish things, when you start making visible changes in your life, people naturally want to know how you did it. They wonder what's fueling you, who's influencing you, and where this new energy is coming from. Even if they don't reach out right away, they'll watch from a distance. They'll notice the upgrades, the wins, the new light in your eyes, and they'll start to compare it to the way you were when they were still in your life. That comparison alone can make them realize they underestimated your potential. Self-growth during no contact also sends a very clear, unspoken message: you are not defined by loss. Most people, when they go separation, get stuck in a cycle of waiting, wondering, and hoping. But when you choose to rise instead, when you take that time to better yourself, you break that pattern completely, you become proof that life goes on, and not just goes on, but gets better. That kind of resilience is rare, and it leaves a lasting impression on anyone who's ever doubted you. Another reason this transformation is so magnetic is because growth changes your energy. Before, your thoughts and emotions may have been tied to them, what they were doing, how they were feeling, whether they were coming back. But as you grow, your focus shifts. You become more grounded, more present, more in tune with your own needs and desires. That shift in energy is powerful because people feel it before they even consciously recognize it. They might not be able to explain why they're suddenly drawn to you again, but deep down, they can sense the change. The truth is, most people are drawn to strength, not the loud, aggressive kind, but the quiet, steady kind, the kind that says, I can stand on my own. When you build yourself up during no contact, you embody that strength. You're no longer the same person who depended on their attention to feel whole. You filled that space with purpose, with self-respect, with things that make you proud to wake up in the morning. And that is deeply attractive because it shows that you are with them by choice, not by need. Growth also changes the power dynamic. When you were chasing, they had the upper hand. But when you've invested in yourself, when you've become better, stronger, and more fulfilled, you shift that balance. You become the one with options, the one they have to work to get claws to again. This doesn't just make you more attractive. It makes them realize they can't approach you the same way they did before. They now have to come with more respect, more effort, more intention. And perhaps the most beautiful part of self, growth during no contact, is that it's not just about them coming back. It's about you becoming so fulfilled in yourself that whether they come back or not no longer defines your happiness. That inner peace, that self-assuredness is something they will feel the moment they're around you again. And it's often the very thing that makes them want to be part of your life once more. When you go no contact, you're not just creating space. You're changing the dynamic between you and the other person. Relationships, whether romantic or not, are built on patterns. There's a rhythm, a flow, an unspoken agreement about who gives more, who chases, and who responds. If you were always the one reaching out, always the one keeping the connection alive, then they've been conditioned to expect that from you. They might not even realize it, but they've grown comfortable in that role. They know you'll always be there to close the gap, to keep the energy flowing. But when you stop, when you take your energy back and stop feeding that pattern, it disrupts the entire structure. Suddenly, the dynamic is flipped. This shift is powerful because it forces them into a position they're not used to being in. If they were the one being pursued, now they have to experience what it feels like to be the one doing the pursuing. And for many people, that change sparks a deeper appreciation for what you brought into their life. They start to realize that the connection didn't just maintain itself. You were the one putting in the effort, the time, the care. Without that, they feel the weight of the silence, and it makes them think. There's also an element of human psychology at play here. People tend to value what they have to work for. When something is too easy to get, it loses its perceived value. But when they have to put in effort, when they have to earn it, the sense of importance grows. By pulling back, you're essentially resetting the emotional balance. You're no longer giving away your presence freely. They have to decide if they value it enough to come toward you. Changing the dynamic also changes the way they see you. Before, they may have seen you as predictable, always ready to be available no matter what happened. That predictability gave them a sense of control, and with control often comes complacency. But when you stop playing the same role, you introduce unpredictability. They don't know when or if they'll hear from you, and that uncertainty creates a spark of curiosity and even urgency. It puts you back in a position of mystery and intrigue instead of familiarity and routine. This isn't about manipulation. It's about alignment. When the dynamic shifts, it often brings to light the imbalances that existed before. Maybe you were giving more than you were receiving. Maybe your needs were being overlooked because the other person never had to work to meet them. No contact forces both sides to reassess. For them, it's a wake-up call. For you, it's an act of reclaiming your power. One of the most significant effects of this shift is that it makes them reconsider their role in the relationship. If they want the connection back, they can't rely on the old way of doing things. They have to step up. They have to initiate, to communicate, to show effort. And in doing so, they start to see what it feels like to invest in you the way you once invested in them. That experience can change the way they value you forever. The change in dynamic also impacts their ego. If they were used to having your attention without asking for it, your absence challenges that assumption. It makes them question their place in your life. And that questioning can stir emotions they didn't expect. Pride might have kept them from reaching out before, but when the dynamic shifts enough, the desire to reconnect can override that pride. Over time, this new balance creates a different foundation for any future interaction if they return. It's not because they were drawn back to the same comfortable situation. It's because they're responding to a version of you that's standing in their own power. They're coming back to someone who isn't afraid to step away when they're not being valued. And that commands a different level of respect. By shifting the dynamic, you're also teaching them how to treat you moving forward. You're showing them that access to you isn't guaranteed, that it must be earned and maintained. That lesson alone can completely change the way they approach the relationship. They begin to see you not as someone who will always be there no matter how they act, but as someone who knows their worth and isn't afraid to act on it. In this way, the shift is not just a reaction to what happened in the past. It's a blueprint for the future. It redefines the connection in a way that puts you on equal ground where effort is mutual and value is recognized. And it's that equal footing that makes any renewed relationship healthier, stronger, and more balanced than before. Emotional connections run deeper than logic, deeper than circumstances, and often deeper than people realize in the moment. When you share experiences, loud struggles, and intimate conversations with someone, you're not just passing time, you're building an imprint in their mind and heart. That imprint doesn't fade simply because contact stops. Even if life moves forward, even if pride or circumstances keep them from reaching out, the memory of how you made them feel has a way of lingering. And in quiet moments, that memory can be as vivid as the day it was created. When two people connect on an emotional level, they form a bond that exists beyond words. It's in the way you understood them when no one else did. It's in the small moments, how you remembered their quirks, how you supported them during hard times, how you celebrated their wins. These experiences create an emotional blueprint, and even if they try to ignore it, it remains etched in their subconscious. That's why someone could be gone for weeks, months, or even years and still feel a pull to return, because the emotional connection never truly dissolves. No contact doesn't erase those bonds. In many cases, it strengthens the awareness of them. When you're no longer actively present in their life, they lose the day-to-day interactions, but they gain something else, perspective. Without you there to provide comfort, to share in their experiences, or to lighten their mood, they start to feel the absence in ways they didn't expect. It's not just the physical absence, it's the emotional void that follows. They notice the lack of someone who understood them without having to explain, who listened without judgment, who cared without condition. That void can't be easily filled because it's tied to something unique that you brought into their life. Time and distance often have a way of magnifying emotional bonds. When you're together every day, the connection can blend into the routine. But when it's gone, memories start to resurface. They think about the conversations you had late at night, the inside jokes no one else would understand, the way you could read their mood without a word. These memories are powerful because they evoke feelings that are hard to replicate. It's not about replacing a person. It's about realizing that some connections are one of a kind. The mind also has a way of holding on to emotionally charged moments far longer than ordinary ones. Whether it was a moment of deep vulnerability or overwhelming joy, these experiences leave a lasting imprint. Even if they try to distract themselves with other people, other activities, or even new relationships, they often find that the emotional connection they had with you stands out in comparison. This realization can be unsettling for them, especially if they thought they could easily move on. Emotional connections are also tied to identity. When someone has shared significant parts of their life with you, you've become part of their personal story. They can't talk about certain milestones without thinking of you. They can't recall certain achievements or struggles without remembering your role in them. In that way, you become woven into their narrative. And removing you entirely isn't as simple as cutting off contact. This embedded presence can be one of the strongest reasons someone feels drawn to return, because in many ways, you become a part of who they are. Another thing to understand is that emotional bonds often resurface when people face challenges. In moments of stress, loneliness, or uncertainty, the mind tends to reach back to times when it felt safe and supported. If you were that safe space for them, no matter how much time has passed, their thoughts will naturally drift back to you. They'll remember how your presence calmed them, how your words gave them strength, and how your belief in them helped them push through. That emotional security is something they may not find easily elsewhere, which is why the pull to reconnect can become so strong. Even in silence, emotional connections have a way of communicating without a single word. They may still feel your influence, the lessons you taught them, the perspective you gave them, the way you made them see themselves differently. These lasting impressions work quietly in the background, shaping how they think and feel long after you've stopped speaking. And when the weight of that influence becomes clear, it can awaken a desire to have you back in their life. It's important to recognize that emotional connections aren't always logical. A person may have convinced themselves they were done, that they could live without you. But emotions don't operate on timelines or checklists. They move in waves, often catching people off guard. A random song, a familiar scent, or a place you once went together can trigger a flood of feelings that remind them of what you shared. And those reminders don't just fade, they accumulate until the pull to reconnect outweighs whatever reasons they had for staying away. When someone has experienced a deep connection with you, they can meet new people, have new relationships, and still find that something is missing. That something is the emotional resonance that made your bond unique. They may not even be able to fully explain it, but they feel it. And that feeling often becomes the spark that brings them back, searching for the comfort, understanding, and depth they once had with you.